What is up, you guys? How's it going? Back again with another My Thoughts video. The only videos I've been posting on this channel so far, so it shouldn't be that big of a surprise. But today we're talking about Stellar Blade. Got a little bit to say about this one, so definitely strap in. But it's mostly positive. So if you came here for hate and just somebody to rant and rave about it and like all the negative ways, spoilers, it's not going to be here. I pretty much have like 99% good things to say. Let's get into it though. Stellar Blade. What is Stellar Blade? Stellar Blade is an action adventure game, if you will. That's what I would say. It's probably closer to like an action adventure game with some like RPG elements in there, like skill trees and that kind of a thing. But it is pretty simplistic with the RPG aspect. So it's mostly focused on that whole action adventure thing. But I think it attempted to blend a lot of things, and I think it did it really well for the most part. But we'll start off with the graphics because that's probably the first thing you're gonna notice. Super hot waifus. I mean, take a look at this. Take a gander at this. They knew exactly what they were doing with this character design. Like, there's no mystery here. They be horny. They be really horny, and you know what? That's fine. I'm fucking with it, dude. Like, I'm all for celebrating bad bitches. Every single one. But on top of that, it's not just like one or two costumes, it's all of the costumes. I will attempt to show you here. Yeah. We do have some more conservative ones, you know, if you just really don't want to see anything. And I love how her ponytail still pokes out. But there's quite a lot of outfits. I believe as of right now, there's 71 in total. No, I do not have all 71. However, this one is my favorite. I wore this pretty much most of my playthrough. Because fuck, I would wear that if I was a bad bitch. Hell yeah. This one literally is just lingerie. Where is it? This one is literally just lingerie. And you get that by collecting every single soda can collectible. But either way, that's neither here nor there. The point is they actually look really cool, despite how horny they may or may not be. The outfits, the art design or character design, pretty fucking sick. We're gonna go ahead and say the enemy design and everything as well is pretty cool. Now this is the very starting area, so I don't have a lot to be able to like show you in terms of enemy variety. But the actually maybe I can cheat a little bit. Is it my data bank? It is. Okay, so there is a ton of different stuff to look at. I don't want to go too crazy here and spend too much time because, you know, this could be spoilers to some people. But the point I was getting at is there's a lot of really cool designed enemies, allies, NPCs. Literally every person in this game, for the most part, with the exception of like 5, has some pretty cool detail to them. Or if they're just like a normal person, they're probably wearing clothes that I myself in real life would want to wear. As a matter of fact, I have an outfit for Adam. Can't show it to you yet because I haven't gotten that far in the game, but it is almost like identical to an outfit that I personally own in real life. But yeah, that's pretty much the point I wanted to make about the design and the art styles of like it's horny as fuck. There's no mistake. We're not going to beat around the bush. There's no hiding it. They know what they're doing. They're leaning into it hard, but the point is that it works. It fits because it's not just the horniness that gets the detail. All the cool shit gets the detail. All the mundane shit gets the detail. For instance, this is actually a pretty good example. This is a standard campsite. This isn't even like the more up. Like there's basically like campsites and then like bigger campsites, for lack of a better term. So the bigger campsites have a couple other things to them, but the smaller campsites usually just have like a chair, a little vending machine, and somewhere to spend your skill points and something like change the music. The bigger ones, they'll have something to do repair stuff, a fast travel, and a couple other things. But every little like scene you can stop, with the exception of like the Great Desert, you can pretty much stop anywhere and see a good amount of detail. Now, some of the buildings might be a little lackluster if you get up really close to them, but all the stuff that you actually are in, all the environments that you interact with, gorgeous. Um, I probably should have maybe shot through a little bit of the New Game Plus so I could have some more footage to show you. And ideally, that's a thing, tangent, I want to go off on real quick. In the future, when I do these videos, I'm going to try to change up the format. I used to always love just doing it right over the credits. The second the credits roll, I sit there and I talk to you. And ultimately, that is still how I'm going to do the videos. I would like to have it so the moment the credits roll, I just rolled credits on this right before filming, as is evident by how early in the level I am with the New Game Plus. But I want to have just more footage ready to go when I beat the game, so I can go ahead and record myself like I am now, but then I can edit it a little bit and I'll have some footage, maybe some stuff to go along, give you better examples of what I'm talking about rather than having to like kind of show off and talk as I go. But as I say every time, that's kind of the charm and kind of the reason I love doing these videos this way, is it's as real as I can get. You're seeing things right off the rip. I don't have to go through some long convoluted process behind the scenes just to show you something. It's I'm a gamer, right? I don't need a long or convoluted like description of things. Sometimes I just want the quick and easy, right? And I feel like to appeal to the more average consumer, the person that just might happen across my videos and isn't super into games, but hey, I like that game, I want to see what this guy thinks. Well, I want to make it as easy to understand for them as possible, so that way when they're playing the game, they know what to expect. Like, hey, if I want to go do this, all I literally have to do is go this. Like in a Yakuza game, all I have to do is walk around the corner, now I'm singing karaoke. I walk out of that building, across the street, now I'm playing Sega arcade games. Like, I hope you understand the point I'm making there. Going back on though, so I will try to have some more gameplay footage to show you in the future. But for now, you're just gonna have to bear with me. So the art design, character design, all of that, fucking cool. The detail in the world design, albeit some places a little lackluster, but this is some personal bias. I am so tired of post-apocalyptic wastelands. Sorry, I'm over it in games. We've seen it in 1,010 different ways. I've spent 200 hours in Fallout 4 since the show dropped. That's just one game. I'm tired of wastelands. I'm so tired of it. I'm so I need more to them. Like, if you want to give me some destroyed stuff, that's all well and good. Horizon Zero Dawn is a good example. They did very jungle, very forest, plant dense. Give me something like that, or more verticality, or more colors. Like a night city that is destroyed would be cool. So like a lot of neon stuff, like flickering here and there, some stuff that still works. Give me something like that. I am so burnt out on the wasteland looks. That being said, this game leans heavily into the post-apocalyptic style. But it does it really well. Albeit, I said I'm burnt out on it, and I am. I still think that this game did a really good job in the art design. The Great Sand Desert level, it's really, no pun intended, it is literally a giant sandbox. There's little to no spots in there, minus 2 or 3 where you have to get in them a certain way. Otherwise, most places can be approached from multiple angles. You really can get in anywhere quite easily in that specific area. But I don't want to go too far into the map. I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the map designs, like the specifics of it, in a later section. But I just wanted to get the detail out there in that it's really not got a lot going on. It's a giant sandbox. It's got some rocks here and some blown up, destroyed buildings there. That's really about it. It does not have a lot going on. So I will say that zone is kind of a weaker one. But let's just call them dungeons for lack of a better term, and the other maps, they're all really cool. There's some notable parts about them that make them kind of pop and stand out, and would put in a lineup of other post-apocalyptic wasteland games, I would definitely be able to be like, oh yeah, that's Stellar Blade for sure. The audio, it's probably not coming through too loud because I'm still getting my mixing down right. But the audio in this game is phenomenal. One of the best OSTs in gaming, period. The whole soundtrack, from like the ambient music in the background to the boss fights. Admittedly, the final boss fight was a little like, well, it wasn't the final boss fight. It was the second to last boss fight. The music for it was a little interesting choice, but still cool. The game is amazing. I have actually gone out of my way to get some of the songs from this OST and download them onto my phone just for personal listening. Like, I love the music in this game that much. Absolute banger of a soundtrack. But the actual game audio itself is really cool. I played with headphones only a little bit. Usually I play with headphones primarily, but this was one of those games I was able to kind of just chill and play, like listening to stuff or talk to my girlfriend. Her and I were both playing it at the same time. So I didn't get like super close in there with the audio, but from what I could hear and did hear, the audio is really cool. A lot of the attacks and skills have like a really good kind of satisfying like weight to the sounds. So when everything connects, it just sounds like really good. And anytime you get like one of like the special kind of execution moves, those have some nice chunkiness to the audio on that too. So and the other thing is there's no like just ridiculous like hints, like constantly like audio's like, oh, I wonder what happens if we go up here. I think I heard like dialogue like that like 3 times this whole game. There is a little thing that pops up in the corner that says hint, that is there quite often, but it literally just says hint unless you press the button, and so it's not very intrusive, and it doesn't feel like the game is like trying to hold my hand that much. But the with that little hint, it has like a little ping, and then that's it. So the it's not really intrusive visually or auditorially. That's the right word? I don't know. We're gonna go with it. Otherwise, it's a pretty cool system, to be quite honest, for hints and stuff. In God of War Ragnarok, they're like, oh, I bet that lever can be pulled, because that's what levers do. So go pull that lever. Oh man, I bet you're gonna pull the hell out of that lever when you go pull that lever. It's retarded. This game, none of that, thank goodness. And last thing I'll mention is like the frame rate to like graphics mode and all that kind of stuff. Played on the PS5, obviously it's the only where it's at. I played in the frame rate mode. I typically don't care too much about frame rate. Those super slow, laggy frame rates, they get to me sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. In competitive games, that's where I'm a little bit more picky about my frame rates, I'm not gonna lie. But with games like Dark Souls and stuff like that, I'm also a little bit picky, because those like really technical, punishing combat games, every frame counts, every frame. This one, it kind of leaned into like that like super technical combat, but it wasn't as bad. So I will say that it's not the most like crucial to have playing at the craziest frame rate. You could do the graphics mode, have the like the 30 frames per second or whatever it is, and still play just fine. Personally, I thought the frame rate on like the graphics mode, like it just felt really choppy for me, but it's subjective. Everybody has their own kind of opinions. I just wanted to relay that it felt really good in the performance mode, and that's what I played pretty much the entire game in. Okay, so let's get back onto like the game design as a whole. So I already talked about the graphics and like the audio and that kind of stuff, and I touched on the maps. So let me get a little bit into the maps now. This game did something that I'm actually very appreciative of, and I hope we see more of in the future. And it mixed both open world maps and like linear kind of just straightforward dungeons. And that actually gave a good like variety to like, I can kind of approach things as I want. I don't necessarily feel pressured. I can kind of, go explore, go do my thing. But then also, like, it gave some really cool set pieces, some awesome moments, some really cool setups for boss fights, the boss fights themselves. So I think the way they did both, like the mixtures and then the actual design themselves, all of it was really cool. They were really good at putting enough like little secret ledges and stuff and like things off the beaten path to actually encourage you to explore, without it ever being too crazy. And that's actually one of the notes I had down here that I really wanted to make sure I got across, is that this game did a really good balance of difficulty with its puzzles. There is like environmental puzzles, move this thing to there, and a lot of them are really easy, like really easy. But then some of them are actually kind of hard. Like I didn't quite get it at first. Now they do become super simple once you get it, but it's actually getting it at first. And there was a couple times where that wasn't the hardest puzzle, but it was hard for me because I didn't notice something really obvious, and it made it a little bit more difficult than it really was. But that being said, there was still plenty of like, good mix of like, okay, I need to think about this, or I can just blindly run through this puzzle and not have to worry about it. It was a good mix of both. And there's other times where it wasn't even so much of a puzzle, it's just like, I know I can do this way, and I did it that way, and I felt a little bit cool for kind of just doing it my own way. So I think that it was something that was worth exceptional note, that the balancing of like the environmental puzzles and like just traversing the levels and stuff, it was really well done. And I felt that for the most part, the pacing with the game, from like exploring to fighting to talking to exploring to fighting, talking, so on and so forth, I think that was really well done for the main mission. If you get bogged down doing all the side content, then it can get kind of weighty with a lot of exposition that you don't really care about. But that's if you're engaging in it. So you can just as easily mash X and you can pick up the lore note and then close it as soon as you got it, and you're on your way. You got the collectible, but you're not wasting as much time. I read every single piece of lore that I picked up, and I will touch more on that in a little bit. But the point is, there's just a lot of stuff to there's a lot of stuff to take up your time if you let it. Otherwise, if you kind of just stick to the main main plot point, you can get through this game actually pretty quickly. I spent a good amount of time on it, but I also did leave it running idle a lot too, so that's kind of on me. Let's see. Whoa. I also got to I also got to mention probably my favorite part about this game, like favorite asterisk part about this game. Because my favorite thing outright was just how cool of a game it was. The combat was awesome, and the design is fucking phenomenal. But then also it has fishing. I'm a sucker for fishing in games. It's a weird thing. You'd think I would just love to play a fishing game. I probably would, honestly. But I haven't played one since I was a kid. And furthermore, any JRPG nowadays has a fishing mini game, so I get a pretty good indulgence in that. This game, however, has a fishing mini game that I would argue is probably one of the best in most games out there. It's got like a cool mechanic to it where you are both tiring the fish out and you're trying to like reel it in. So there's like two different mechanics at play, and then balancing the two and doing it on repeat is just a lot of fun. I do wish there was a way to incorporate something with the casting. And this is a great point. Wish I had some footage, but I don't because I'm stupid. The casting is literally just flick back and forth on the left stick. You don't really control how far or close it goes, and I feel like that one little detail could have added a little more depth to it, but that aside, there was still plenty of depth as it was. Pun intended, get it, fishing. There's a lot of different fish to catch, really cool designs on them actually, when you actually got them out of the water, and it did the obligatory like crazy fish in the air, camera zooms up, boom, snapshot of the fish, here's its weight, all that, blah, 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 blah. you know, the graphics on those guys are pretty good. They did really good on those models for things people would otherwise probably never see because it's completely optional content. But let's see. Okay, so the gears, like loot in this game, there isn't really a ton of it. Most of the loot is just upgrade materials to upgrade various things, either crafting your suits, upgrading your skills, upgrading your cores, and basically your like equipment. I'm kind of covering it. Let me move my person right now, or my camera. So this is all you've got. You've got your exospine, which you, for the majority of the game, only get one. You don't get that second one until way later. And then you start with one gear slot, and then over time you open up more. And these, there's is a variety, but these kind of are as is. They have certain rarities to them with certain percentage buffs, and that's really all these are just percentage buffs. There's a couple ones that are a little bit different, but overall it's pretty much just a plus or minus to this or that stat. That's really all they come down to. I would have liked to see something kind of in the more creative aspect, like, oh, if you dodge or if you get a perfect dodge, you get like a slight power boost or a heal, or I don't know, if you sneak attack an enemy, they explode. I don't know, shit like that though. You get what I'm saying? I feel like that was a missed opportunity with the gear system. Because like I said, yeah, it's otherwise just plus or minus stats. That's really all it comes down to. The exospines, they are a little bit more in depth, but they also kind of just come down to plus or minus on certain things. Some of these, like this for instance, recovers energy by 100 when you use a potion. Like, I think that's cool. Like I said, this is a step in the right direction. It's a little bit more creative, but it is still kind of on the simple side. And then that's it. Otherwise, this is all cosmetic stuff. Yeah, cosmetic stuff. As you saw, I just went through all the different costumes. There are 2 other people in the game that you can put costumes on as well. You can trick out your drone as well. And then, ooh, glasses, because we gotta have our different glasses. Even though I literally wore the same ones all game long. And that's really all there is to that. The gear, the loot, and everything, it's kind of boo-boo. Not a huge fan of that. But for what the game is, what the game like had overall, the loot was perfect. It had enough variety. You were always like kind of just right where you needed to be to get the things you wanted, or just behind, so you'd only have to do a little bit of grinding or wait a little bit of like time before you could afford or get whatever you needed to. But here's one bugaboo that I had. This actually really irked me. So as I mentioned, like, there is a good variety of skills in the game. So there's I'm going to use this to transition into combat, so this is going to be a bit of a tangent. So these are all the skills. For the most part, they're your, garden variety skills. Your survival's going to make it so your dodge goes up a little bit. The window gets better. You get more energy from doing them, etc., etc. I feel like this is like a cookie cutter thing. Like, I don't really think any of these skills from this skill tree were particularly notable. I think they were as like serviceable as a skill tree can be. And one of the most egregious crimes it commits is its artificial inflation, and that is only with a couple skills. I feel like this skill tree could be just as good or serviceable if you took these out and maybe put in something else. Hell, it could be way better if you put in something really cool, but that's neither here nor there. This one specific, perfect dodge, and there's a perfect parry one somewhere too. Is it this one? Yeah, perfect parry. So these skills make it so the like that you can actually do it in the first place. And then there's ones that make it actually easier to do. Like, the window of opportunity is a little bit bigger, and there's actually an exospine that makes that even better. But I feel like the fact that points are even dedicated to this in the first place is annoying and just artificial inflation of skills, because it's like these are basic gameplay functions, and until you unlock this skill or whatever, the gameplay function itself, like the parrying, is kind of hard to do and doesn't feel right. A really good example is if you watch Asmongold's playthrough this game when he started playing it, he got really frustrated and he kept talking about how just something fell off, or I forgot the terminology he used. I'm not trying to be verbatim here, but he basically was having a hard time with the timing from the combat of the parry and the dodging. It just felt off, and I agreed with him. I felt the exact same way when I first started, and then I got the skills, and then it got easier, and then I'm like, well, fuck. It really just, it was artificial inflation. Like they could have, like the parrying and the dodging feels perfect now that I have them like upgraded, but it shouldn't have to upgrade. Like a good like kiting or combat system, the parries and the dodges would just feel good to start. And I feel like the fact that they used that key aspect as a way to fill out the skill tree, I don't like that. I feel like that's poor design, in my personal choice. I feel like parrying and dodging should be, great, perfect, feel awesome just right off the bat. And then, sure, maybe throw an item in there that makes it easier. That's fine. But I don't think it should be artificially harder for really no fucking reason other than to make you spend a skill point. So I really didn't like that. I thought that was kind of shit. And then in all honesty, like a lot of these skills, like you said, it's garden variety stuff. It's just like a little more damage here, a little more damage there. Now, I got to give it some credit because I don't want to be completely harsh here. I try to be as honest and level-headed as I can be about this stuff. My preference aside, there are some in here that are kind of cool. There are some that give like little combos. For instance, like there's a damage boost, but then this one also hits down enemies. This one throws an extra basically beam of light into the attack. Some of these add like a whole follow-up attack to the initial ability. Where's another good? Okay, so these are kind of cool. So these are like combos basically. So this is stuff I like skills like this is great, and that's why I'm gonna say this whole skill tree is like serviceable at best, because although it has the most egregious afflictions or mischiefs any developer could commit, I'm so fucking off on a tangent. Even though this skill tree has what I would consider the worst qualities of a skill tree that developers could put in there, it also has the best. With that, it has actual noticeable differences and add-ons to skills that make a skill that would otherwise be one note or one-dimensional multi-dimensional. Giving me combos, giving me a follow-up move after using an ability, stuff like that. That's great. I love that. More of that, please. Less of, oh, you can parry normally now. That's boo-boo shally. We don't like that. I literally had talk about the skills that are fine except for the dodge and parry. Insert tangent here. But otherwise the combat was really cool. I really felt like the combat had a lot to offer. It was very satisfying and rewarding. Once you get the parry and dodge down, those both feel really good, really well implemented. You can feel a bit overloaded with enemies, but there is kind of a get out of jail free card in that you have essentially a gun. Your drone turns into a gun at any point, and you can use that as a ranged weapon. And it does pretty good damage, all things considered, and it's a really good way to kind of turn the tide in your favor. And admittedly, it's a good way to cheese a couple bosses. I'm gonna lie. It takes out just a nice like quarter bar of health on some of them. So if you're smart about it, that range tool can make the difficulty just non-existent. But overall, the combat, when just sticking to like the sword skills, it's really cool. I really like the parrying. I like the fact that you can essentially parry anything. And then also, I'm glad I didn't forget to mention this, because this is something I really did appreciate about this combat. I play a lot of Souls games. I typically lean into parrying. Parries are my preferred method of rebuttal in these games. I prefer to parry more than block or dodge, right? Those are parry, block, or dodge. Those are the three main ways to go. This game does have blocking. It's just really not a viable option unless you are just really bad with your times or your timing. But like I said, I usually lean towards parrying. This game has beta skills and burst skills. So beta skills, is there a way I can show you? Okay, so in the bottom left part of my screen here, over my health bar, you'll see there's a little red bar and a little, was that white bar? Something like that. Is BE and BU. So the BU is the burst skill, and then the BE is the beta skills. And those charge off of various things like parrying and dodging. And so in order to use my, burst skills, which I would argue are probably the strongest ones, I have to actually dodge to build up that meter. And if I want beta skills, I have to parry. And I also think like regular attacks help with the beta skills too. So like I can just block and it'll slowly build up, I think. No, it won't. Okay, so I do have to hit the parries or I have to hit attacks. That will charge my beta skills. And then my burst skills charge like strictly from dodging, but they are way cooler and way more powerful. And anime as fuck. But I wanted to compliment the game on it getting me to comfortably step outside my comfort zone. Like I said, I typically lean towards the parrying in games like this. This game's like, hey, we know you like parrying, so we'll make it viable for you to just parry everything if you want. There are some stuff you can only dodge, but that's it's like a blue circle that appears random. It's a very obvious thing. It's like, okay, I have to dodge that. I can't block it or parry it. And then those dodging skills are very useful. And they're also pretty good for crowd control too. That one that I just used there at the end can clear a whole room of weak enemies with just the one move. So, yeah, I thought that was just exceptional. The fact that they were able to get me to step out of my comfort zone like that. And yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of risk and reward with the combat, and there's a lot of variation to it as well. You don't necessarily feel stuck doing one or two things. Admittedly, the combat does kind of boil down to, do the basic floor combos until you get enough charge for whatever skill you like to use. But, to each their own. The fact is, the combat was really fun, and I enjoyed it, and I'm probably going to do the boss rush after this. And now that brings me to my last point. Last thing I want to talk about is the story. I'm gonna give you a spoiler warning, but the story is not that fucking big a deal. It's like, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. It might be a way bigger deal to other people, but for me, I felt indifferent. I feel like it was kind of... there just wasn't enough to really sink my teeth into. The story basically goes, you're coming here to fight the Natibas, and your attack force is intercepted, so you guys kind of crash land on here, and you're quickly separated on your own. You get saved by a human, then you come to find out that there's a city, Zion, which is basically where all the humans that live on Earth still live. And then your whole goal is to basically destroy all of the Natibas. And that culminates into a grand revelation that, surprise, surprise, not all things are as they seem. And then you're kind of left with a choice of like, do I want this way? Or do I want it that way? I want it that way. Anyways, I chose this way. And here I am on New Game Plus. I could care less about the story in all honesty. The side characters didn't really stick out at all. Like Lily and Adam are the two you're gonna meet the most or talk to the most. They're fine. I'll give them they're not annoying. at least, you know, right? They don't overly intrude on the radio. They're not constantly badgering you with dumb shit, stupid jokes, dumb remarks. Unfortunately, they're mostly just NPCs. Really, that's how I felt. A little partial to Lily, I will admit. But that was it. There was a side quest with a story involving a robot woman who basically had like spider legs and couldn't really get around all that well. And so she was a human dude loved her, and so he wanted to get her like normal human style robot legs. So that's a whole side quest and everything, and ultimately it was way more emotional than I was expecting it to be, and had actual cutscenes with it too. Not the most crazy things in the world, but it was still quite passionate, quite moving, and that caught me off guard. And considering that I don't really care about the main story at all, like that was the thing I took away from it as like the most significant. Yeah. I know some of the characters stick out, but in my opinion, they don't stick out for good reasons. They stick out for just being kind of goofy. Like there's just some random fishmonger dude who doesn't really seem to fit in at all in any way, shape, or form other than being a fishmonger vendor. So yeah, there's some definite disconnects with things. There's a whole section of the game that, now this is nitpicky stuff. It's video games, they gotta take it as it is, but there's a whole section where you basically drain water away, right? Supposedly this water's flooded this place for hundreds of years at least. And when you're going through and exploring this place where the water had just drained away, you happen to be finding like papers on tables, bottles just chilling on counters and stuff. It like there's like no reason, if water had been flooding here, that any of this shit should be the way it is. But I digress. Nitpicking wasn't really that big of a deal, and that level was pretty well designed altogether. But I would say the only thing I really took away from this was that one side quest, and then the fishing guy, not the monger, but the person you actually get the fishing side quest from. Oddly insightful. He again wasn't a crazy huge character. There was some pretty interesting dialogue with him though, some philosophical things, and I like that one of the repeated lines is like, "It is what it is." I don't know why that resonated with me, but it did. So we're gonna wrap this thing up now. If you've watched my videos before, you know I like to do 2 scores. If you haven't watched my videos before and this is my first one, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me, listening to me ramble, and for making it nearly 40 minutes when I thought this was gonna be quick, but it wasn't. But yeah, so we do a score where I try to make it as like objective, baseline, simple, average, everyday man as possible. So pretty much zero personal bias, what I think, you know, the just standard market, you know, pop culture understanding and opinion of this game would be, and then my personal opinion, and those typically are way more favorable because I love video games. It's my favorite thing to do. And if I get to the end of a game, chances are I at least liked it a lot. I don't think I could ever see myself finishing a game that I hate. But just because I may love a game and say it's the best game of all time, I am also not so delusional that I will sit there and tell you that, you know, you're wrong for not liking it. And I can also admit that it isn't the best game in the world ever made. You know, I do realize that there's some faults here and there. But that's why I do the 2. I give a more realistic review, and then I give my personal review number. So we'll start with my personal review on this. Fuck, dude, this is like a 9 out of 10 at least. I really want to give it a 10 out of 10 because I'm a fan of giving 10 out of 10s to games when I feel like they did their job perfectly. A 10 out of 10 for me is near impossible. I don't think like any game truly could hit it. But I feel like just looking at a game, Stellar Blade, it came here to do two things. One, show me boobs, and two, let me chop up monsters. Did it do that? Abso-fucking-lutely. Did it do that well? Abso-fucking-lutely. So, yeah, 10 out of 10. No, but a little bit more detail. I had a lot of fun with this game. There's a lot of the stuff I liked. The combat and like the actual gameplay, the moment to moment, everything I was doing and spending my time, really enjoyed. I wanted to sink my teeth into the lore and the history and like stuff with this world more, but even when through all the collectibles, believe it or not, yeah, is this a lot? I don't know. I got all of them. I read all of them, and they kind of all cover like the same handful of events. Funny enough, there's not a ton of stuff like little lore notes or anything that go into like random tangents or talk about things that aren't, I guess, prevalent to like the main story and the events that happen in the main story. Like all of these kind of talk about the one war, and like they're very like broad takes. It's either like, oh, the war was so terrible, it took over all of this area, we lost all these things, or they're more just like cutouts of like a person's final words, right? Like, I can't take this anymore, I thought they were going to come to help us, but it turns out we were betrayed all along, or something like that, right? So whereas there are all these little things to find that give more details on the universe and the lore, there wasn't that much to find, if you get what I'm saying. Like, there was a lot of physical things, but all the information gathered from them ended up not being that substantial, which is a bit of a bummer, man. Like, I really wanted to get more into the lore, but other than that, I feel like they set this game up for a sequel, so I don't want to like harp into it too hard. It is the first game in a new IP. They gave me a good amount of stuff. I'm being a little overly critical in that regard, so that's why I'm trying to be like, fair about it. Like, this is, again, if I wanted it to be a like my perfect 10 out of 10, it would be nowhere close. But it set up a world, it gave me the tools to enjoy it, and I absolutely did. I did to the point where I nearly platinumed this game. The only reason it's not a platinum is because I don't want to beat it 2 more times, and I don't feel like having to play the entire game over again just to find a few more cores to max out my thing. These are literally the 2 other endings I didn't get, and then this is maxing out my beta and burst energies. That's it. I have every other trophy from this game. So that alone should show you that I am quite sincere when I say that I did truly enjoy my time playing this game, and I would gladly do it again. I feel like there could be like room for maybe like multiplayer, possibly, like because they had like some fights and some missions where you had like a companion with you, and I feel like that would be a cool way to maybe like get some sort of co-op action going on or something. But yeah, so I'm just gonna stick with a 9 out of 10. I don't necessarily think it was the greatest game of all time ever, obviously, and I do feel like there's a few hiccups with it that I just have a hard time looking past, that keep it from me just being like 10 out of 10. Fucking go get it right now. So we're gonna say 9 out of 10. But goddamn, that's a really strong 9. Like I said, it did what it wanted to do. It gave me a great time while we were doing it. And I usually say that a lot about games. It has a goal, set out to do what it did. And I feel like that's something a lot of people don't actually take into account, because like I was just saying, if it was me personally, a 10 out of 10 game would be near impossible to reach. So I feel like that's a bit of a wrong or an incorrect kind of way to standardize it. So for me, when I'm talking about a 10 out of 10, it really comes down to just how much I enjoyed it. Like 10 out of 10, can I see myself playing it for hours on end till the cows come home? Absolutely. 9 out of 10 is like, did I love it just as much as I would love that endless game, but feel like there is a point where I could end and put it down, that's probably the difference, right? I don't think I could play Stellar Blade like forever. Like I definitely would get burnt out. If there was like a stream of content, like more things to unlock and all that kind of stuff, I do feel like I get burnt out. But I still absolutely love the fighting. The boss fights were just so fucking cool. The designs were great. The time I spent in it was awesome. The music is gonna haunt me forever. I love it so much. The art design, holy fuck, it's so horny. God damn. Really wish my girlfriend would be interested in cosplaying because holy fuck, we have so many ideas to choose from. Anyways, so for me, 9 out of 10. Lock that in. Now, my more baseline objective review, I'm trying to be as like unbiased as possible, as likely as that sounds. And I feel that this game did have a few shortcomings. How do I articulate this to sound smarter than I really am? I guess the story was a bit too convoluted. You have to do a lot of extra things to get a better understanding of the story, and I feel like that would alienate a lot of just average players who are looking to pop on and play a few hours a night after work. I feel like they wouldn't have a lot to resonate with. I feel like they would just be like, I'm a cool person or hot bitch with a sword, now I'm chopping shit up. And really, that's kind of how I felt too. But because I just no life this game over the last week and I got really deep dived into all the little collectibles and reading everything, I did get to see more of the lore, and I did feel a bit more of a connection to it. But with that said, I still see it as a kind of just, I'm a hot bitch chopping up demons, and you know, that only goes so far. And then with that, the variety of gameplay, though it is kind of varied, like there's other things to do besides fighting. Those other things are very, very small. There's not a lot to do with them. They're not very detailed, very deep. I would say the fishing is probably the most in-depth thing there is to do outside of fighting. And I highly encourage you to do that. It was a lot of fun. And like I said, Clyde is the best. We love Clyde. But, you know, it's just, this game is kind of like a drop in the bucket. Other than having incredibly just like outstanding art style and graphics, performance was amazing. The veneer, the polish, that looking on the outside, it's fucking just beautiful, top notch. You know, this is current gen gaming, right? But when you deep dive into it, it's not really anything special. I mean, from a critical standpoint, it really does everything it sets out to do well. I feel like because of that, it definitely is going to get a better rating. But you know, it is kind of a drop in the bucket. Like, it is another Bayonetta, it is another Devil May Cry, it is another God of War, it is another fucking Nier Automata. You know, it's another one of those games. It sets itself out apart, sure. It does it in a great way, a noteworthy way, sure. But is that enough? And I just don't really think it is. I feel like, unfortunately, unless it's like Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty, it's not going to have a lot of mainstream appeal to begin with. But kind of coming at it from that, you know, barely a couple hours a day, if I'm lucky, gamer, what am I going to see, you know, walking down the aisle, I see this at $70, I'm probably not going to touch it. I walk down the aisle, I see this at $40. Now I'm thinking maybe. And a matter of fact, I think that's where we're going to lock it down at. I think that this is an absolute like must have for any PS5 owner. If you have a PS5 and you're looking for reasons to own the damn thing, this is one of them. This is absolutely a must play for hardcore gaming enthusiasts. I would say if you're just open to gaming in general, you're not necessarily like, oh, I only play FPS, or I only play racing games, or I only play action games. This game is just fucking awesome to play. It's a lot of fun, really cool, and you know, it's definitely gonna feel satisfying while you're playing it when you finish it. But it's just so hard for me to like advocate people stop what they're doing and like go play this game. So I feel like a pretty objective review number of this would probably be like I don't want to do 0.5s or anything like that, so we'll do an 8 out of 10. You know, it failed to do, I don't want to say it like that. It did stand out, but barely. It didn't stand out enough, in my opinion. I feel like the fact that it's a PlayStation exclusive is doing most of the heavy lifting with this, for full price anyway. But once it's like $40 or less, I feel like this is a no-brainer. Like, abso-fucking-lutely. Like, this was a lot of fun. Yeah, sure, it might not be a crazy different, like, you know, from the crowd, but it's technically sound. It's very well polished. It's a complete game, though they're gonna be probably updating a ton of skins and I think like extra stuff here in the future. They said a photo mode's coming even. That's awesome. That's all well and great, but as is right now, this is a complete game. You can play it. There's multiple endings. There's a lot of shit to do. It's a lot of fun. Definitely worth your time. And I feel like that altogether, that's a great, you know, sum of all of its parts, and I feel like that's a good rating. So for me, it's a 9 out of 10. And I feel like for everybody else, an 8 out of 10. Pretty close scores, but I definitely lean into the cybernetic waifu aesthetic, so definitely going to be a little bit more biased on that. But yeah, so that's about it for my thoughts on Stellar Blade. I've got a couple other ones in the works. We're just about to a point where I feel like doing a My Thoughts video on Fallout 4. And that's that one I'm kind of stepping out of my bounds a little bit because, as you know, I like to do it when I hit or make the credits roll, but Fallout's a little bit of a different experience. I feel like me being 200 hours in and still probably another 100 hours to go, I feel like that is enough, you know, to make an exception to the rule. But we've got a couple other things going to Star Ocean 2, and then possibly a Warhammer Battle Sector review coming up. So keep a look on my Twitch. I've started tiptoeing back into the streaming thing. I was literally trying to make my big debut back, and go figure, the week I do, my work schedule gets changed. So still figuring out the details on that. I will be streaming when I can get some time in. I almost did it tonight for this, but because of all the editing and I didn't necessarily know how long I'd be doing it, I had to not stream this. But yeah, follow me on Twitch, Guy in a Panda Suit. If you haven't already subscribed and liked the video now, you've been here so long, why don't you just go ahead and go down there and click that buttons, both of them. Click that thumbs up and click that red one, and I'll stop stuttering. See, look at that, perfect. I am not stuttering anymore, all because of you. And I will be also posting a couple of TikToks for Stellar Blade too. I haven't really been posting anything lately, being a, you know, full-time employee and trying to do content and having like a social life is a little bit of a lot to juggle. So bear with me, guys. I really appreciate you supporting me in the ways that you do. Let me be me. Let me do the things in the way that I do them, whether they're perfect or not. Fact is, you guys are here, and that's perfect for me. So thank you a lot from the bottom of my heart. Appreciate you guys. Till the next one. Panda out.